Hello, everybody, and welcome to Right Here, Right Now, live Buffalo football talk presented by Forefathers Organics. I'm your host, Alex Brasky, here for the Batavia Daily and Livingston County News. Each week, we'll discuss Buffalo's favorite football team, along with all the comings and goings from Orchard Park, thanks to our friends at Forefathers Organics in Dansville.
Unlock the power of nature with Forefathers Organics, your premium CBD store. We offer the highest quality CBD and hemp products to liberate your mind, body, and soul, helping you live happy and free. Our mission is driven by excellence and transparency, using cutting-edge scientific methods to combat stress and target issues at their source. From potent ingestible CBD to soothing topicals, all our products are USDA certified organic. Discover all natural wellness from farm to table. Visit ForefathersOrganics.com for more information.
All right, a quick podcast here on this Thursday evening. Another day of Bills practice has gone by. Spoke with some players after practice, got some injury updates, and we'll be happy to deliver those to you here shortly. But first, let us begin this podcast with the topic that is in the title. Sean McDermott awarded the Greasy Kneel Award to the best coach in pro football, the 36th year of the award. What a name, Greasy Kneel. That's an old school coach's name if I've ever heard one. I had never heard of the award before, and I'm not saying that this award should be taken as highly as the Coach of the Year award. But for Sean McDermott to receive this award, an award that's been around for 36 years, I think it points to a larger discussion that I've been wondering throughout the course of the season. Why is Sean McDermott not in the Coach of the Year conversation? And I've been wondering this for the past several weeks after really the midpoint of the season, after the Bills just kind of rolled through their first half of the season schedule and set themselves up to win the division once again for a high seed in the playoffs. It became clear to me that the job that Sean McDermott has done this season is really up there with the best coaching jobs in the NFL this season. Now, I'm not sure if he should be in line to win the award. You look at Dan Quinn taking the Washington Commanders from nothing to a playoff team. Kevin O'Connell helping Sam Darnold guide the Minnesota Vikings within one win of earning the number one seed, I believe, in the NFC. So there are certainly some great candidates, but for Sean McDermott not to be listed amongst the top five candidates in terms of the odds on sportsbooks just seems to be mind-boggling for me. And we were discussing this inside the field house. I think it was John Scott from WGRZ who brought it up, and I concurred with him. I've been saying it all season long that Sean McDermott should be a part of this conversation. And if you look at the top five coaches in terms of odds on many sports books, you have Dan Quinn, you have Kevin O'Connell. Sure, great candidates. Also, I would say even Sean Payton within the top five is a good candidate. But the other two, Dan Campbell and Andy Reid, Campbell has really kind of continued on with the Lions what he put in place last season. And with two coordinators in line to receive head coaching jobs this offseason, I'm just not so sure that Dan Campbell is Coach of the Year material this season. Not to say he's done a poor job and not to undermine the job he's doing, but I think when it comes to Coach of the Year, you look at those coaches who have gone above and beyond with their teams and what they've been given in terms of what they have to work with during a given season. And what Sean McDermott has had to work with this season is far less than what Dan Campbell has had to work with. Sean McDermott, two new coordinators this season. I know that Bobby Babich has been around. I know that Joe Brady was installed as the interim coordinator last year, but that's a big shift to make from one year to the other. And to do so with the roster changeover that this team has experienced as well. Just a phenomenal job from Sean McDermott. And the fifth name within the top five of the Coach of the Year odds on sportsbooks, Andy Reid. I'm just not sure about that one. I know that the Chiefs are the number one seed in the league's best conference, and they won all but I think two of their games this season. But this is back-to-back years that they've won the Super Bowl, and you have the best quarterback in football. You have a future Hall of Fame tight end. You have a defensive lineman that is probably going to be a future Hall of Famer. You have an experienced defensive coordinator. I'm just not so sure Andy Reid and Dan Campbell really strike me as those typical Coach of the Year candidates, whereas I think what Sean McDermott has done this season with what he's been given with this roster and this coaching staff, I think Sean McDermott deserves a lot more consideration for the Coach of the Year than he has been given this season. And it was good to see him get the Greasy Neal Award. Like I said, the first time I had heard of it, but it is the 36th year that the award is around. So there's at least some group out there that thinks Sean McDermott is doing a job worthy of the Coach of the Year. But we will end that conversation. I guess it's neither here nor there when it comes to Ravens week, but I just found that to be an interesting conversation to kick off the podcast. Interested to hear what Bills fans may have to say about it. I think I'm going to tweet that out later on today. Although I did bring it up in a tweet earlier. I said Sean McDermott should be in the Coach of the Year conversation, in my opinion. Didn't get many replies. I think I may have a tweet later that may garner a few more replies. Ghosty D4 did say basically no Pro Bowlers and one second-team All-Pro. Clearly the roster is not good, and clearly the QB isn't the MVP. So what other reason explains the 2 seed and having 13 wins? Coach must be elite. No, not that either, apparently. And I think that rings true. I think with all that, and to have no one on this team really earn those high honors in terms of Josh Allen, MVP, Sean McDermott, Coach of the Year, it would really be a shame after what this team has done with such changeover that they've experienced, like I said, on the roster and in the coaching staff. But moving on, updates from Bills practice here today, Thursday. The Bills are about as healthy as you can expect a team to be entering the divisional round. And what a great job by this strength and conditioning staff and really the entire organization, the foresight to be proactive with a lot of these injuries this season, not allowing those to linger late in the year. You get Milano back in time. Terrell Bernard's injury turned out not to be as disastrous as you thought it might be. So just a phenomenal job by the strength and conditioning staff that was under fire at the beginning of the season. It's been a long injury report throughout the course of the year, but to get guys back in the manner that they have so quickly and to not really have any, if at all, or many, if at all, extended injuries lingering throughout the course of the season. Just a great job by this group. Like I said, being on top of things, being proactive, having those conversations with the players and making sure that they're not putting those players in bad positions. And I think it showed itself last week with Brandon Codrington. Codrington said this week that he thought he was ready to go last week, but the coaching staff, the medical staff held him back, wanted to make sure he was all good to go before they got him out there in game action. And we have John Robert, yes, Ray Davis wearing a red non-contact jersey during today's practice. He was also wearing a Guardian cap, which if he is to suit up this weekend, I'd be interested to see if he'll wear that during the game. He's still a limited participant. I still am on the side of it's a long shot for him to play this weekend. I know that the way he's progressing through the concussion protocol, already reaching stage 4, that really puts him in a good position to play this weekend. But with the way that the Bills, like I said earlier, take these injuries slowly, especially when it comes to head injuries, I'm just not so sure that they'll rush Ray Davis back, especially when they haven't been using him as much as they had early in the season with the emergence of Ty Johnson and the steady production of James Cook. I'm just not so sure you need to rush Ray Davis back in this situation. I think we might see him on the mend for 1 week. And then if they are the Bills to win this week over the Ravens, then maybe we see him take the field against the Kansas City Chiefs next week. Alec Anderson, another injury of note, one that we're following this week, a calf injury. He seems fine. I believe he'll be all set to go this weekend. There was minor concern early in the week that the Bills would be without their jumbo tight end who's played such a critical role for this offense this season. But seeing him out there today and watching him interact after practice, he's in good spirits. I don't think there's any way that a competitor such as him is going to miss this game, and miss an opportunity for a fight in this one against the Baltimore Ravens. Excuse me. A little tickle in the throat. I've been getting those lately. More podcasts. I think it's wearing my throat a little bit raw. Also doing some high school sports broadcasting recently, and I think all of the above, especially with this cold air that we're having. I don't know if anybody saw the forecast for this upcoming Tuesday. It's supposed to be, I believe, in the single digits. And if you think about the real feel, it's going to be negative 21. So if the Bills aren't to win on Sunday and we have to deal with that on Monday and then go into that freezing cold day on Tuesday, boy, that's going to be a really, really tough week next week. But like I said with Alec Anderson, I think he's going to be good to go this weekend. The one that I'm interested with is Codrington. Although he's good to go injury-wise, I'm interested to see if the Bills will have him back there returning punts or if they'll stay with Khalil Shakir. I know that there's been discussion this week whether or not Buffalo will elect to do that. And I was on the side of Codrington will be inserted as soon as he's ready to go. He was a top 5 returner during the regular season, but just to watch the way that this practice week is played out, Josh Reed of Channel 4 tweeted out a photo of Khalil Shakir returning punts in the snow after practice today. So he's obviously still working at it. So I'm a little uncertain with Codrington now, a little bit more uncertain than I was at the outset of the week, whether or not the Bills will have him back there returning punts or if it will be Khalil Shakir as it was this past week. But as I said, the Bills are about as healthy as you can be entering the divisional round against the Ravens, who have one critical injury that they're dealing with, and it's a big one, a Pro Bowl wide receiver, a 1,000-yard receiver at that. Zay Flowers still not practicing for the Ravens on Thursday. He didn't practice Wednesday either. Earlier in the week, and I said this on the last podcast, John Harbaugh did say that he wouldn't have to practice in order to play, but you have to wonder at this point what he'll be able to offer if he is able to suit up, not being able to practice the first 2 days of the week, and Friday typically reserved for close to a walkthrough for NFL teams leading in to the weekend. So I'm just not so sure that Zay Flowers, even if he is able to suit up, will offer anything meaningful for the Ravens offense this season. And that's going to be a loss. He's a matchup problem. He was someone that the Bills would have to account for. And it really makes the Bills secondary's job a lot easier. You have Rashad Bateman, who caught a touchdown this past week. He'll probably be the focal point on the outside, but really the focal point in the passing game, as I said in the previous episode, will come down to the tight ends. But if you look at Mark Andrews' stats against the Bills in his career, 3 receptions for 31 yards, 1 reception for 14 yards, 4 receptions for 28 yards, 2 receptions for 15 yards. And then in this last matchup earlier this year, didn't have a catch in that game. So whatever the Bills have done against Mark Andrews, they've seemed to have that secret sauce. And I think over the years, the Bills have done a relatively good job against these talented tight ends. And I think a big reason for that is the heady play at linebacker, also the good nickel cornerback play from Taron Johnson, and just the communication at the back end of this Sean McDermott defense, which is now being operated and called by Bobby Babich this season. And I think that communication has come a long way this season with Taylor Rapp assuming a larger role at the back end, Damar Hamlin plugging in at the safety position. And then you have Christian Benford really coming into his own as a player. And then you have the veteran Rasul Douglas, his second year in the system. So I think that communication has been key for the Bills against tight ends, getting them off the line of scrimmage, whether it be a chip, slowing them down, whatever you need to do to make sure that they don't get a free release. And on top of that, just good coverage down the field. So we'll see if the Bills can do the same type of job against Andrews this week. I think really the name to watch in that tight end group, and I said it previously, Isaiah Likely, a big-time talent, can really do it all at the position. He can block. He can go out and catch passes. He can run routes. So look for Isaiah Likely to have a big game in this game. And if history tells us anything, Mark Andrews will be limited in this game, although he's had a big season in terms of touchdown receptions, over 10 on the season. All right, before we get to a quick break, thoughts from the locker room today. 4 years to the day since Taron Johnson recorded the pick 6 against the Ravens in that divisional round matchup against Lamar Jackson and company. And 2 different responses we received when asking the players about it after practice today. One from AJ Epineza. He was asked about the crowd's reaction. And if you remember in that game, it was the COVID year where only 6,000 fans or so were allowed into the stands at Highmark Stadium. But if you listen to the replay, just the roar that you heard when Taron Johnson is sprinting for the goal line. And that is what AJ Epineza remarked about today at Bills practice. Just how there wasn't a lot of fans there, but it really made the stadium come to life, even with the 6,000 fans. And imagine if a moment like that takes place this weekend with Taron Johnson or somebody else recording a big pick six, a fumble recovery, a kickoff return for a touchdown. This building at Highmark Stadium will be absolutely electric come Sunday night. And on the other side of the coin, we also asked Dion Dawkins about that pick six, and he really downplayed it. Just said the past is the past, trying to really move forward from that. And he's kind of tired of hearing about that, I think, when it comes to this matchup with the Ravens. You heard Lamar Jackson comment on it earlier this week, saying how everybody loves to post that clip, and rightfully so. That turned the game around, really sealed the deal for the Bills in that one. But Dion Dawkins saying the past is the past. The Ravens are an entirely new team, and for that matter, the Bills a new team as well. And that speaks to Terrell Bernard's man in the river speech that he gave during Wednesday's session. But yeah, I think that rings true with Dion Dawkins. The past is the past. You have to look forward in this situation. If you're in that locker room, you can't spend too much time thinking about Taron Johnson's pick six. I think it's more for the fans and the media alike to have a good time with. And I think Dion Dawkins' response was one that was expected. Final thought from the locker room. The Bills will go up against a familiar face this weekend. Tre'Davious White, the former All-Pro cornerback. He started the season in Los Angeles with the Rams. Didn't have a great time out there. He's played a lot better with the Ravens. He's mixed in their secondary, which has struggled this season. They've really been great at defending the run, but at times their secondary has shown weakness. And he's mixed in with Brandon Stevens opposite Marlon Humphrey at the cornerback position. And it'll be interesting to see if the Bills see a lot of Trey White in this game and whether or not a Bills receiver can catch a touchdown pass or make a big play on him. I'm sure he'll be well received. He was a very well-liked player here. He's certainly not a player that any fans will be rooting against, but it'll be a nice environment, I'm sure, before the game and to see maybe some players interact throughout the course of the game, depending on how much we see White out there as he's in a rotational role with the Ravens. All right, before we get out of here after a quick podcast on this Thursday practice day, let us quickly thank our sponsor, Forefathers Organics in Dansville. At Forefathers Organics, their mission is to liberate, educate, and innovate with the highest quality CBD and hemp-derived products for your mind, body, and soul so you can live happy and free. Visit them at 87 Franklin Street in Dansville, online at forefathersorganics.com, or call them at 585-335-2223 to learn more about the products they offer. All right, a couple more topics here. The weather on Sunday is supposed to be frightful. We discussed it on the previous podcast. Under 10 degrees real feel. Lamar Jackson's coldest game has been 27 degrees. Derrick Henry's has been 22 degrees. But Lamar Jackson 3-1 when the temperature dips below freezing. So he's had some success. He's had experience playing in cold weather, maybe not a plethora of experience. I think he's been out due to injury in some of the games that the Ravens have played in really, really cold temperatures over the years. But it'll be a wild one in Orchard Park this weekend. It's supposed to have a chance of snow, I believe a 40% chance of snow. Wind not supposed to be a factor, about 5 to 10 miles per hour. So the kicking game shouldn't be impacted unless there's a lot of snow on the field, which I'm not expecting. The balls do get a little bit harder when it's a little bit colder, so it's kind of like kicking a rock. So I guess it will be impacted that way, but not in terms of the ball being blown around. These are two of the league's most inconsistent kickers this season, so they really need all the help that they can get in this one. So the snow maybe plays a factor late in the game. The cold, really the main thing to worry about in this one. And both teams practicing inside, but the Baltimore Ravens, I believe, letting the air flow in their indoor facility in Baltimore, trying to get it as cold as possible in that facility to prepare for this weekend's game in Orchard Park. And finally, to leave you with this, the Bills are loose going into this game. I don't want to get anybody nervous and have you think that they're not taking this team seriously. I'm sure that they are, but this team is loose. You had Dion Dawkins after practice today. He had his snow goggles be released tomorrow. But he made the announcement today to the media that he will be putting those up for sale in the Bills store. Really reminiscent of Bret the Hitman Hart with the purple shade on them, purple tint, and Dion the Snowman with the snow goggles. And he was just having a great time. He was asked if he's feeling loose entering this game, and he just said he's free. He's just Dion. That's who he is. He doesn't really try to act any different way. And you can tell that spread throughout this locker room. Khalil Shakir mentioning how he buys Mac Hollins pizza every week, mentioned how Mac Hollins' pizza order does not include cheese, which I find a little disturbing, but obviously comfortable enough to bring up that anecdote. And then after practice, a few of the offensive linemen having some fun off the jugs machine, catching some punts. So just all around, I think this team is loose entering this game, whereas in the past, I think they've squeezed up a little bit. They've been a little bit tense with how the season has gone and how they've been entering this round, maybe a little bit banged up. But with their full complement of weapons on both sides of the ball and with how they've kind of shattered expectations this season, I think this team is not only clicking on all cylinders on the field, but mentally entering this divisional round matchup with the Baltimore Ravens. All right. Thank you for joining us. Second of many podcasts this week. We'll be back tomorrow with another practice update. Try to give you some more topics as well. And we will see you next time.